A new Halo novel dropped relatively recently. It's a focused story following the Master Chief, the weapon, and the pilot from Halo Infinite immediately following the end of Halo Infinite. By focused story, I mean that it doesn't jump around the galaxy looking at numerous different individuals from numerous different factions before pulling it together at the end like some of the earlier novels do. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but more focused stories are a nice change. It tells a very human-centric story of struggle for survival, PTSD, survivor's guilt, trauma, and above all, hope. While being very focused, however, it makes some revelations within the book's near 300 pages that paints a very interesting picture indeed for the future of the Halo franchise that is bringing some enigmatic characters and their far-reaching influence to the centre stage of galactic affairs. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. Forgive me if my tone shifts or changes across this video. It was recorded over several days while I was still suffering from the flu and a sinus infection that has utterly turned me over for the past week. I'm not prone to getting sick very often, but when I do it's usually only a day or two that I'm out of action, so this is quite alien to me. In either case, I'm first going to pass my thoughts on the book in spoiler-free fashion before diving into the lore and implications of the book, which will obviously involve spoilers. Now, I was given the opportunity to have an early listening copy of the audiobook, courtesy of Simon & Schuster. The audiobook itself is read and performed by Nicholas Rye, Steve Downes, Jen Taylor, and Deborah Wilson, an all-star cast which brought this audiobook alive in the very best way. There is a link below in the description and in the top pinned comment if you'd like to pick up a copy of the audiobook yourself. Hearing the characters talking to each other as they navigate the twists and turns of the story is most enjoyable, and means you can learn this new story and the lore implications as you go about your day, or just sit back in a comfy chair, or whilst ill in bed in my case, and let the story flow, which, because of that fact, comes with my seal of approval. I also picked up a physical copy of the book because it's always nice to have physical media as well, and my growing library wouldn't be complete without it. Kelly Gay, the author of this book, has become a mainstay name within the Halo novels and is responsible for a few of the most recent Halo books that have served to expand the narrative and knit together disparate lore and develop characters in a meaningful way that is only enriching the tapestry of Halo's long-spanning timeline. She's the author responsible for Point of Light, a story following Ryan Forge and Spark, as well as some deep lore regarding the Librarian, the Cycles of Time and the Precursors, as well as guardianship of the shield world of Bastion, the Life Shaper's private garden world. She also wrote the Rubicon Protocol, following several Spartans and survivors of the attack on the UNSC Infinity and their struggle for survival on Zeta Halo from the fall of the Infinity to just 3 days before the Master Chief returns at the beginning of Infinite's actual campaign, as well as Epitaph, which was a beautiful send-off for the Didact and gave additional information and insight into the domain and how Cortana went from wanting to enforce an imperial peace upon the galaxy at the close of Halo 5 to sacrificing herself to give humanity a fighting chance. All three of these novels have expanded the lore and brought together storylines and characters that have enriched the story surrounding Infinite and Zeta Halo, and Edge of Dawn is no different. The human struggles, the character development and emotional beats of this story set that desperate but hopeful tone, and that willingness to lay everything on the line for the survival of humanity, not just as a collective species, but as the quality of being humane, decent, and care for each other. And the revelations of the deep lore paint a very powerful picture of both the origins of the Endless and who the key players will be, having their immense influence be felt in Halo 7 and beyond. The book itself picks up with the Master Chief and the weapon as they are spit out of the slipspace rift they dove into at the end of Halo Infinite within the Silent Auditorium, after killing the Harbinger and their reunion with the pilot Fernando Esparza. The weapon chooses her new name and settles on Joyeuse, or Joy for short. This is taken from the mythical sword of Joyeuse, which is the sister sword to Cortana, acknowledging her connection to Cortana, being both sisters created from cloned brains of Dr. Halsey. This also mythically folds in with Durandal, the sword of Roland, all three being swords that have the same steel and temper as each other. This also references Marathon, Bungie's earlier title, which on the face of it reveals that Halo Studios are evidently happy to at least acknowledge and nod to lore established from Bungie, something that 343 Industries made effort to avoid doing on many occasions. Take from that what you will. Jega R'Domni survived his battle with the Master Chief at the House of Reckoning. This isn't really a spoiler, I mean he's on the cover of the book. The story quickly evolves into a rescue mission for Lucas Browning, the field medic captured by the Banished and used to release the Harbinger from her Silex. Lucas Browning was then something of a pet of the Harbinger, who spoke to him on many occasions, driving him into madness, and between these conversations, he was tortured mercilessly. This was covered during the audio logs within Halo Infinite's campaign, so again, there are no spoilers here. Lucas Browning is spotted in the custody of Jega R'Domni, prompting Chief, Joy and Fernando to rescue him and try to learn what it was the Harbinger told him, so they could gain further intel on this new, decidedly unknown and emergent threat. And that is about as much as I can tell you without spoiling anything. So, from here on out, expect spoilers. Now, I don't just want to recount the entire book to you, that would be ultimately pointless, but there are several things I want to discuss that are important to both the story and the future, but these will be major plot spoilers, so if you want to do a clean read of the book or listen to the audiobook, pause the video now and come back later. Everything from now includes spoilers. You've been warned. There is now a colossal power vacuum for the Banished, not just because the Master Chief killed Escharum, but that during the opening chapters of this book, Chief dropped a low-yield thermonuclear bomb from a Sentinel on the House of Reckoning at the end of Escherum's funeral. Jega had already left with Lucas Browning, but all other pack leaders who were most likely to be the next leaders of the Banished at that time were likely killed in the process. Jega made it clear, but he cared not for the Banished leadership and just wanted to avenge his old friend, Escharum. So although we know Aatrox is still alive from the legendary ending of Halo Infinite, one of the senior-most members within the Banished is now Severin, a brute, the last remaining son of Tartarus. But his loyalties are both with the Banished due to his cousin Koros, and with the New Covenant due to the Sanshayum Dovonesto. This was information covered in Empty Throne. I'm sure you're already buzzing with theories on where that could lead, but we'll throw out some theories towards the end. Moving on, a scene in Chapter 7 seems to confirm Chief received Spartan 4 augmentations on top of his existing ones, something I suggested outright in a video in December of 2021, but also mentioned my thoughts on this in many videos predating this. The part that caught my attention read, John himself had endured excruciating chemical and biological augmentation processes that covered a wide range of applications, from strengthening his bones and increasing his muscle mass, to having some of his organs protected by polythread weave, whilst others were removed and biofabricated. As many of us know from the augmentations that the Spartan 2s received, Project Aster, we know that wasn't on the augmentation list. Having organs protected with polythread weave and other organs removed and biofabricated were not in Project Aster, the Spartan 2 augmentations, but were very prominent in Project Orchid, the Spartan 4 augmentations. So, my earlier hypothesis that Spartan 2s, being such valuable assets, would likely be given the opportunity to acquire any new tech and augmentations to keep them on the cutting edge, now seems to have been canonised. Many of the Spartan 4 augs could help support and increase the effectiveness of the earlier augmentation sets and have no negative drawbacks to the physiology of the Spartan 2s. So I'm glad to see this is somewhat now been canonised, and I just want to drive it home that I f***ing called it. Moving on, Jega R'Domni is an interesting case. This is something that we already knew from his appearance in Infinite, but the fact that he has cybernetics and has been healed despite having taken a grievous wound sets him apart from most other Sangheili. Elites view their blood as their honour. If their blood is drawn in battle, they cannot regain their honour unless they either kill the one who drew the blood or die themselves in battle. It is because of this belief that doctors and healers within Sangheili culture are basically non-existent. A doctor's work would naturally involve drawing the blood of others, which is surrounded by immense shame. So if an elite is injured, they are expected to regain their honour if blood was spilled and then heal on their own, or die. Jega was a member of the Silent Shadows, the same ones in fact who stood against the Spartan 3 headhunters Jonah B-283 and Roland B-210. Jega would kill Jonah but intended to capture Roland, who figured this out and lured him and the other Silent Shadows to a disruptor that took their shields and cloaking down, and then detonating explosives, killing himself and all the Silent Shadows except Jega. Escharum found him badly injured, and Jega resigned to abandon the honour that once would have seen him perish, and resigned to use vengeance to motivate his return to full health, with cybernetic enhancements to make him even more lethal. In this manner, he is miles ahead of the curve of his brethren, even the Swords of Sanghelios, or who are only just now awakening to the value of living to fight another day. Moving on, now as you know from the non-spoiler section, Lucas Browning is still alive. His torture, the things that he was told by the Harbinger, are of great value and interest to both Jega and the UNSC. But we discover, once Chief and Joy rescue him, that he has a Geas, but not a Forerunner implanted one, a Xalanin implanted one. It is unknown if the Harbinger had acquired Forerunner Geas technology or if the Endless have their own version of it. I'm inclined to believe the latter due to the revelations we have about the nature of the Endless towards the end of this book, but we'll get to that. There is also a Lifeworker Huragok that is found within a Forerunner Lifeworker facility and helps heal some of Lucas's wounds and injuries and tries to stabilise his mental state. Joy muses on the connection between Lucas and the Huragok, perhaps suggesting it may have a Geas of its own, but they're not living entities and so no DNA to store the Geas. However, motivations become clear later on when it becomes apparent that perhaps the Huragok took the Geas of Lucas in a similar manner to how Lighter Than Some in Halo ODST uploaded Virgil to itself. After their connection, Lucas reflects on the numbers and noise being gone and wanting clarification on if it took it away. We never conclusively find out before Jega kidnaps the Huragok. Also, although I say that it is a focused story, I just want to quickly address the fact that during this book, we see numerous different settlements and environments and biomes across Zeta Halo. We see an ancient human settlement, all like mud brick buildings and like basically the ancient human city that was on Zeta Halo. We also see Lifeworker Central, which at least descriptively bears striking resemblance to the Halo Infinite multiplayer map Forbidden. We also see sand biomes, icy tundras, jungle biomes, underwater facilities like on Delta Halo. It's just more frustration at how little we saw in Halo Infinite, but at least paints a somewhat hopeful picture for what might come in Halo 7. Again, only time will tell. Moving on, the visor for the Gen 3 MJOLNIR is polycarbonate and can heat up. Now, I love the lore, but the physics of it don't line up very well. So it's now confirmed that Chief's MJOLNIR visor is a layered polycarbonate. Nice, because my real MJOLNIR helmet is currently exactly that. However, the idea it can heat up to burn off things obscuring his view doesn't track. Polycarbonate has good toughness across a wide temperature range, from negative 40 degrees centigrade up to around 135. Higher than this, polycarbonate begins to soften as it goes through its glass transition temperature. Now, for water, that's fine, because water boils at 100 degrees C at 1 atmospheric pressure, and would leave very little behind. I don't see why a superhydrophobic coating couldn't have exactly the same effect, but Later, the same system is used to burn off blood and gore. Heating a polycarbonate visor, even to 135 degrees C, would boil off the moisture in the blood and gore, but wouldn't clear the visor entirely. Deposits of dried blood and tissue cells would still soil the visor, yet it's suggested that the visor can heat up enough that it all just disintegrates and clears the visor, suggesting carbonization. But if you heated a polycarbonate visor that much, well, the visor would carbonize too. So I don't know. I like the lore, I love learning more things about MJOLNIR, of course, but I wish they'd consult me on it from time to time. I could advise on these little details and make them both lore accurate and seated nicely in material science. But it's only a little nitpick. You guys know what I'm like. Also, don't know how I missed this before, but Thomas Horvath is an absolute unit for a Spartan 4. At 7'3" out of his armour, he is 5 inches taller than the Master Chief at 6'10" out of his armour, and he's also around 4 pounds heavier. Now, Gen 3 MJOLNIR makes the wearer 4 inches taller and weight approximately half a metric ton, so the weight differential doesn't really account for much here, but that would make Thomas Horvath 7'7" in his armour, and is described as big and burly, even for a Spartan. Again, just a little note, I have no idea how I missed it. Another interesting revelation we have in this book is that offensive bias, at least what I believe is offensive bias, it's never specifically confirmed, makes his first active appearance in this book. He overwhelms Joy while she is in a Forerunner system and steals the encephalon of Despondent Pyre, leaving him in charge of Zeta Halo, if he wasn't already. However, other than a flashback later on in the book, that's the last we see of him. Moving on, composed human essences have been implanted into monitor carapaces. Now this was last seen in Greg Bear's Forerunner trilogy. Hardlight projections of composed essences aided the ancient humans Chakos and Ryza while on Zeta Halo. We only know this because Chief and Joy figure it out. At the apex of Lifeworker Central, scientists from the UNSC Infinity had been working to unlock the facility to get inside. Something must have happened to them at some point, and they were converted into essences and given hardlight projections, which to any onlookers still look and even feel like real human bodies. But Chief's armour and Joy's scans identify that despite them being right in front of them, there are no active life signs or IFFs detected. From this, they deduce that they're hardlight holograms being projected by the facility itself, meaning they are anchored to the facility and cannot go anywhere else. Toward the end of the book, Joy actually helps move these scientists collectively into an abandoned and partially damaged monitor carapace, allowing them free reign over the installation, but also being, as far as we know, only the second monitor ever to be made of a human substrate, with 343 Guilty Spark being the first. However, I also acknowledge that the carapace contains at least 5 human scientist essences, meaning the monitor carapace is also technically a compound mind, not dissimilar to mendicant or offensive bias. Just an interesting parallel to draw. Once the scientists are contained within the monitor carapace, they venture further afield and find more human survivors. Well beyond the Lifeworker station, there's a huge 3,000 kilometre clearing showing clear gatherings of large amounts of UNSC survivors. It's also hypothesized that either the Infinity is gone or is being cloaked somehow, so there's still the possibility Infinity may be on the ring, but hidden beneath a Forerunner Dazzler, just as the Didact's Cryptum was hidden on Earth. We also now have more information on the Criterion, a triumvirate of leaders of the Forerunners, the Grand Edict, Inspector Mauritius and Chief Judicate, the last of the Criterion. The statues that we see on Zeta Halo that look like hooded and cloaked Forerunners are in fact effigies of those 3 members of the Criterion, and the 3 statues in the Silent Auditorium are even more still. They are durances, meaning they are long since dead but still archived essences of the Criterion on Zeta Halo. Chief and Joy either get drawn into one of them or interface with it via a beam or translocated into an in-between space or memory and re-watch the Tribunal of the Endless. Not much else is learned here about their nature, but we understand from the interaction that the Foreigners wanted them imprisoned due to the risks they posed to the intended legacy the Foreigners wished to leave behind. Our final realization on the Endless comes with the final speech by the Harbinger. It's actually the same signal she was sending during our battle with her in the Southern Auditorium, and reveals the Endless's origins. All we heard was the final line. So while I read this excerpt for you, bear in mind that canonically, this was being broadcast while you were fighting the Harbinger in the Southern Auditorium. He hovered over the waters, a wisp of the lords of old. The bright horizon trembled in weight, great wings and flowing tail, pure life bound in celestial circulation, verdant gaze, prelude to breath. One of making, they of making, his nature from a pulse begat. He was, we are, he became, a radiant shower, spores become shores, we sprang forth. Vessels of eternal light, computation circulation, quantum blood and neural bone within a skin aglow of home. Our world was life beyond the before, from his light we were made, among all kinds we rose, over the flow of twining streams, as that which passed became was from is. We sought lasting, we sought unity. We grew from dust, we grew as his, were beloved as his, we grew anew, the children of Abaddon, seeking to last everlasting, to swim in the twining streams, to be at one with the current, what was, what is, what will be. Each of us grew anew. We begat what became us, familiars, propagation, echoes, each a kind of our own, to preserve, to cultivate, to build. We were as he is to us. Some we kept close, some we sent out, some remain among you. We stood by, but not by. Tides rose and streams flowed and the stars winked in and out. Life bloomed and its petals fell, defeat on repeat, until one day the children of death were set upon the cosmos. Hubris and creation and gnashing of teeth, a cradled kind torn asunder and set loose upon those beside and those before. Hunters of his kin, crafters of his yoke, blind to us, but bound to us. A new wave had crashed upon this galaxy's shores, a twisted deluge once more seeking unity, but not like before, and not as we sought. Not to commune, but to command. It was like our Lord. It is not our Lord, but it seeks to be yours. Countless synchrons aligned like stars, a consolation constellation, brought a broken freedom in the shape of a ring. Its pervasive pulse cleaving in the wake of cleansing, rattled and ruptured our timeless tethers, our entangled essences dammed off from the eternal fount, a twisted tributary, both misery and sweetness, to our everlasting weeping and wails. We cast our plight upon the hunters, we weave our fate to those that follow, though we had come before. The first freed by the displaced, I search and cannot know like I should know, cannot find my kind, my mind. Once I wielded the kinetic light of an aborted age, but now I can but scrape power off a scant surface, like wiping the dew from a vessel, full but closed. For once I feel the ticking clock, reclamation provocation. They do not understand, but they must provide an end all the same. He like machine and her like mind, photon neurons, alloy flesh to bind. If I could but show them the truth, what kings their kind were built to be, more than false echoes of a sundered scar. Cut off from the glow, I've lost my light, eternal whole now finished fight. My last drops an entangled plea, to return the way of me to we. But to no surprise, this is no surprise. We live all of it at once, to remember, to be, to become. I knew I was to die, but could not have lived differently, would not. The flow we map within the glow is not an immutable current, but the overlap of cause and consequence. The universe is a box, we know its edges, we fill its space. Mine to be a story told, a herald of a new and now and old. Last drops of light to sing their song. Tell them I'm sorry it took so long. And that final lament, though beautiful, also highlights that Abaddon made them out of the same dust that the flood were generated from, but were purer, free of corruption and unified through peace, not consumption. This means the Endless are almost literally the precursors reincarnated by one of their own artificial intelligences. Abaddon is the precursor knowledge engine deep within the former capital city of Criterion with a direct connection to the domain. This entity, using the same precursor dust that gave rise to the flood, masterfully created a pure reincarnation of the precursors, called the Xalanin, or Endless, and the Geas, a species of familiars to aid them. This also ties into the fact that in one of the Fracture stories, Abaddon could create organic biological versions of mechanical constructs, such as Promethean crawlers or aggressor sentinels. I am most definitely not the only one who has noticed the eerie similarity in the appearance of the Watchers and the Geas. So we now have offensive bias in control of Zeta Halo. The Endless are the precursors reincarnated, meaning their connection to the Flood might be particularly horrific for a galaxy at large, particularly given they were evidently alive and just sat back watching the galaxy get consumed by the Flood and did absolutely nothing about it, and weren't even affected themselves by either the Flood or the Halo array. Abaddon's influence is still being felt, suggesting that he may be out there somewhere. Whether that means Criterion is still out there somewhere as well is anybody's guess. Aside from Atriox, the leader of the Banished could well be the son of Tartarus, who is also basically the second in command of the New Covenant. Jega R'Domni now has the Endless Geas in his possession in the form of a Lifeworker Huragok stolen from Lucas Browning, and there is much more UNSC on the ring than we originally thought, and we still don't know where Atriox is. And that's the major parts of this story I wanted to bring to the fore. There is tons more that can be discussed, especially as how this book links in with the mainline story from Halo Infinite and Halo 7, as well as tying together several previous novels referencing much earlier lore and pulling in fractures. I have to applaud the book's ability to start pulling together many disparate parts of Halo's lore and crafting them into a single storyline with immense possibilities. I will cover a lot more theories, much more in depth with their own dedicated videos over the coming weeks, but in the meantime, if you haven't read the book, what's your thoughts on the potential of these storylines, and if you have read it, let me hear your thoughts and theories on what we have to look forward to in Halo 7 and beyond. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a wonderful New Year, and until next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to tap that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Pop a comment down below on things you'd like me to cover in the future, or any thoughts on today's video. I'll just quickly take this opportunity to thank my patrons and YouTube supporters: Falcon X003, the Singular Contender Class Ancilla, Laser and Spartan 0137, two of the Triumvirate of Minds within the Metarch of my installation, my installation's monitors: Shane, Orion, Spartan 1029, 121 Esoteric Sight, Ashley and Sylphia. The Crash of Sub-monitors: Legion, Ryan, Labrat, Element 0, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma and Tony. My fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome individuals helping to support the channel over on Patreon. It really does help and allows me to keep doing what I do, and I can't thank you all enough. Huge shout to my Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Balaz, Jimbo and Mori. Thank you for continuing to stand sentry over my installation from all threats metaphysical. And if you would like to help support the channel in a more visceral way, consider jumping aboard as a YouTube member or patron to earn tons of perks, merch,
and goodies along the way. Thank you again for watching, take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.